Okay, so I'm Brendan. I'm a compulsive overeater. Weigh and measure 3 meals a day, write them down, send them into my sponsor, and I eat those meals no matter what, but I don't eat anything else in between other than that. First of all, I want to say, look, thanks to everybody who's come, really and truly. This is really something special that you've all come over here, I suppose. I'm not the greatest at sort of being part of groups, you know. It's not my forte. I have been in recovery programs for a long time, and I've gone religiously to meetings because if I didn't, I was going to lose my life. But the food program was, it was there in the background. It wasn't something. I didn't have a serious problem with weight. I didn't. It wasn't really an issue. I was a big guy. I could carry the weight that I had. I never got to extremes or levels. But when I look back and see some photos, I don't want to keep those photos particularly. But they weren't. Nobody was telling me, Brendan, you got to do something about your health. You got to do something about your weight. When I was getting married, I decided I better lose a bit of that paunch. I went out and did a bit of swimming and this, that, and the other, and then I sort of took a couple of drinks and forgot about it. And, it wasn't an issue. I mean, it wasn't a major issue. But when I got sober in AA, I got sober in AA, and I had been in AA, I got into AA, and I did 3.5 years without a drink. But I always had to have some other substance, every so often, just to take the monkey off the back, because I thought the problem was the problem. And after 3.5 years of that, I picked up a drink again, and then I went out for 5 years. And when I came back in, I knew that I wasn't going to last. And when I didn't have it in me anymore. I was just done. And I thought, so okay, again, it was like sort of, I presumed that was my problem. But then I started to see these various other things in my life that were equally issues over which I didn't have control. And that's what I think that's what's been, for me, and I'm in multiple programs as well, it's been that business of not having control, that I can't control my behavior. And there was a time when I didn't want to control my behavior. That was what I thought that was great. I didn't have to control it, and I wasn't going to follow any rules or regulations at all. You show me a one-way street, I know the way to go, and that's going to be the wrong way. And I'm going to do that, not because there's any particular benefit, maybe, but because you said I can't. Right, so, I think there was a film years and years ago called Up the Downstairs. I don't know if anybody ever remembers that. It's a sort of, set in some Brooklyn college or something. That's me, I'm going up the downstairs all through my life. My whole life has been up the downstairs. And somewhere when I remember, I actually can remember the moment when it changed. I had convinced somebody to give me a ticket to fly from Peru to some other country. And I had got it on credit. And this was the tourist agency I always used, and the girl had given it to me, but she was new, and then she kind of freaked out, and she'd come to my house, and she was talking about it. And the next thing, when I was going to go to the airport, I found out she'd stolen the ticket back. I didn't have a ticket, And I didn't get upset about it, I just laughed, because that's kind of, things happen in my life. And I remember, and then I found out that the ticket that I would have had, I would have arrived 8 hours late for a connecting flight. And so the whole thing was a mess. And previously, I always got things because I'm entitled to them. You know what I mean? So I had a girlfriend coming over from England one time, and I'd never had any money, but I had now got I didn't have a job. I don't know, whatever it was, for some reason or other, the bank gave me a card with money on it. I think it was, I'd signed into some college thing or whatever, and so they'd given me this card, and I went down to the bank, and she's coming over from England, and this is 6 o'clock in the evening, and I put it in the first time, and it eats the goddamn card. And I'm like, sort of, bang, so, and like, this isn't the time, there's nothing's going to happen, you have your phone. What phone? There were no phones, there were no. So I'm ringing the emergency department of the bank, and he's saying, well, we can't do anything till Monday. And an hour later, he meets me in the police station, and he gives me £200, and he says, please don't write to thank the bank, because I'll lose my job, yeah? Do you know what I mean? So I'm kind of used to getting in my way, and like, I pride myself on being a nice guy, but if I don't get my way, Mr. Nasty comes out, and he comes out, and then of course when you give me my way, I'm back into being like, why didn't you just give it to me at the start? Because if you'd given it to me at the start, we wouldn't have had to go through this. So actually, you're responsible for making me be this person that I don't want to be, So like, just give me what I want. Yeah? And it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. Right? So anyway, wherever I was, that's what I'm dealing with. And I'm dealing with this thing. But on that occasion with this ticket, I just laughed about it. And I made some calls, and everything changed. And then people started to give me a lot of help. And I suddenly realized I've lived my whole life believing that I have to act in this particular way to get my way. And actually, I have a cousin down the country, and he says, it costs nothing to be nice. It costs nothing to be nice. But I'd always have been at this, and I reckon I was at this since I was 3 years old, at home, in the family. And I had this thing of like, why can't you be like them? And I was like, I've got no interest in being like them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm quite happy to be me. Why can't you let me be me? Yeah? As a matter of fact, why don't you just get on board with it? Because I'm not changing. I like sort of, And and sort of, so I suppose along the way, I was all lined up before I got into alcohol and substances and relationships and all those sort of things, good things that can give you dopamine hits. I was in it with the food. You know what I mean? I remember sort of sitting at the table, and we'd have that Sunday roast, and my father would be the far end of the table, and I'd be looking at the roast, and I'm waiting for seconds and sort of this thing, whatever, and I'm waiting for him to cut the damn thing, and there's loads left. And he's got this thing of he's got control of the knife, you know what I mean? Oh, dear me, like, and this is just the life sort of thing that's going on, and so I'm in this war to get what I want in a situation with a father who literally said to me one time, he says, I'm sorry, Brendan, like, I was a Victorian father, I thought kids were supposed to be seen and not heard, we could hear you, yeah? And but like, so, that whole thing meant that I got to a stage where I just medicated. I medicated, alcohol, whatever, food, I just, something to give me that feel. It was something to fill up something inside. And I got into AA, and I worked the program the second time around, and I was furious. I was like one of these people, like, get out of my way if you're not doing programs. Like, just get out of my way. I'm not interested. Say, there's nobody here to chair the meeting. I'm going to chair it because I'm here to survive. And nobody was working steps, and I had to find somebody who could take me through steps. And I got into that thing, and I was just furious about recovery. And I worked my way through it, and I found that, and I'm not. You may say, oh, well, you're not talking all about food. Like, it's irrelevant. Like, the food is just so irrelevant. It doesn't say that food is my problem. Food's not my problem. Food's not my problem. Alcohol's not my problem. Relationships aren't my problem. This is my problem that says is selfishness, self-centeredness. And I feel, when I don't feel right, I need something to make me feel right. And so, I've done steps in many programs and in various different ways, and furiously thinking, if I just get this program right, I'm going to get what I want. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I was like, I'm in a program for whatever, but I'm in there 6 months. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get the steps done. I know it works. I'm going to do this, whatever. And then I'm going to have what I want. 16 years later, I'm still in this sort of situation. But what I learned along the way was, or what I've sort of got out of it, is that there's nothing outside of me that can fill up the hole in me. There just isn't. There isn't. And I got into it. I was about, I don't know, a long time sober, and I had hopes to get back with the mother of my son, and I was trying all that step work and amends and all things, and it just wasn't working out, you know. And I tried it this way and tried it that way. It just wasn't working out. And I remember my sponsor at the time, you know, he was, I thought he was a nutcase at times, but I wanted his sobriety. Didn't like him at the start, but I wanted his sobriety. I knew that he would be sober tomorrow. I knew he'd be sober tomorrow, because I knew that he did what he said he was doing, you know. And he told me wild stuff like, you know, make the phone call the most important thing in your life. I'm thinking, you're nuts. I don't have a phone. I don't have a phone. I'm in Peru. You're in the UK. I haven't got money. I've got kids. You know, like, how can the phone call be the most important thing? But he wasn't the sort of guy that you could actually discuss things with. I mean, he wasn't like, you know, he was sort of like, are you arguing with me? Do you know what I mean? I said, and he said, like, if you slip 3 times, you know, like, you'll be looking for a new sponsor. And I'm like, oh, you know, like, so this guy's just... So it was ridiculous, the sort of stuff that I thought I was doing. But that phone call became a point of order in a totally disordered life. And just getting that one point. Now, you know, he would say, years later, he said he's had enough. which was fair call, eh? But he would say to me, he says, like, I can't see how I'm being helpful to you. You know, you don't follow all these instructions. And like, what I was sort of saying is, if you look at what I've actually done, that I would never have done if you hadn't suggested it, it's been some massive changes. Yeah? And you know, and it's all about change. It's all about change. You know? I learned what became important to me, and I mean, I do workshops and I do things and this, that, and the other, and I grab people. And I remember these guys. I lived in Japan as well, and I was sort of listening. And I remember, like, sort of, you know, catching a couple of victims and, like, sitting them in front of me, you know, and sort of, like, giving them the program, you know, like they're in a wind tunnel, like, you know, I started the day. And at one stage, I realized, I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, they're not listening to me at all. They're just like, you know, just, well, what's going on? Like, what's here? You know. But I was listening to me. And one of the things about, like, giving away the program is, like, that sort of, I'm listening to me. And sometimes, you know, especially if you're working with a sponsee and you're advising them to do something. And I can go back and sort of say, am I doing it? You know, am I doing it really? It's just kind of like a weather vane. It keeps me sort of back into the thing. It's the whole sort of thing down the line, you know. I've got, you know, I have an energy. I shouldn't drink coffee. I mean, really, I'm naturally caffeinated. And my one of my best friends is like, Brendan, please don't. Don't drink coffee, you know, because you won't shut up at all. But I have this energy, and I have an energy for life, and I have a higher power. And I was, you know, I've learned so much on this thing. I've learned so much about this. I was in Australia, and I decided that I was going to spend the rest of my life in Australia. This is back, like, sort of, you know, 2013, 2014. And I just needed them to extend my job for another 2 years. I'd be able to stay there. And some person came in, and she took over from my boss. And previously, everything's going right. She comes in. I saw her coming from a distance. I knew this is not going to work. You know, like, you sort of see the person, and you just know it's not going to work. And I can see that she's looking at me, and she's going, this ain't not going to work, you know. And I'm there at the end, and she's blocking the door to me. And I was just getting ready to fight. And I suddenly thought, you've been here before. You've been in this before. You know, you've been in a situation where you got a nudge and you resisted and you got a boot up the rear end. You know, it was like sort of God gives you this little sort of thing. It's like, and you're not moving? Okay, well, we move you, you know. And so I suddenly stopped. I was on the steps. I was just about to sort of, you know, get ready, like, we're going to war here, you know. I'm going to get my way. And I suddenly stopped and I said, If the door is shut, I'm looking at the wrong door. I'm looking at the wrong door. And I swung around and I said, what is it I really want to do? And what I really wanted to do is I had this idea in my head about making a documentary in the Amazon with these indigenous people. But my head is always telling me, you can't do that. You'll never be able to do it. And so I said, oh hell, maybe that's what I'll go and do. You know? And that was in 2016. And there was nothing lined up, there was nothing planned, you couldn't arrange the ticket in advance, you didn't know what was going to happen, you're told that they don't actually like whites and they don't like researchers and all this sort of thing, whatever. 8 years later, I'm working with the people in the Amazon on this sort of thing, you know? And it's like, you know, it's like, I had a job, I'm just like, is there a higher power? I don't know. But I can say that when I live as if there is a higher power, my life goes better. And one of the main things is, I don't have to worry about a whole load of stuff. I don't have to worry about it. You know, because I got to these situations where, you know, like, where's the money for the rent? I don't know. Well, when is the rent due? At the end of the month. Okay, well, what's the point of worrying about it? Because my higher power does everything at the last minute, just like me. And so, like, you know, I know it's my higher power. So there's no point in me worrying about what's going to happen. My thing is just to show up today because he hasn't let me down. And I get my daughter saying, Dad, can you guarantee the university fees this year? And I'd say, no. But it may as well go ahead because it hasn't not worked yet, yeah? You know, and that's kind of, you know, they say the only thing that's promised from the program is a spiritual awakening. It doesn't promise anything else. It doesn't promise a good job. It doesn't promise savings. It doesn't pray good health or anything like that. All it promises is that having had a spiritual awakening as the result, not as a result, as the result of these steps. And I thought about that and whatever. And then, you know, you kind of look at it. You look at the doctor's opinion, and he says, we're going to be restless, irritable, discontent unless we get a complete change in our way of thinking. And I thought, how do you change completely? And the way you change completely is by doing the steps. Because every step demands to like a small change in your thinking. And the cumulative effect of all those changes is the spiritual awakening. And, you know, and I had that thing about, oh, you know, like, I don't want to go back to the church or this, that, and the other. But I was passing through Los Angeles it was probably Los Angeles. And I was in the airport. And I mean, you know, got nothing to do, so I'm shuffling around in the bookshop. And this book by the Dalai Lama hits the ground, you know. So I pick it up. It's a sort of an ethics for a new something or other. And I open up the book, and it says in the middle, it says, you don't need religion for spirituality. And I thought, bingo, that's great. You know, that's great. I did start to go back to a religious practice, but it wasn't because I was looking for the higher power in there. It was I was looking for some place to go and say thank you to whatever power it was that was keeping me sober. Just where I could take an hour a week and I would go someplace and I wasn't asking for anything. I was just going there to take time out of this to sort of say thanks for keeping me sober, you know. And you know, that's it. And it's I'm in various programs. I've been in another one for 16 years where I've been on the periphery of it. You know what I mean? Sort of like, and I just now got involved in the tools game that they have around that one. And it's like, okay, you know. But I do have, and I'll finish on this. I might. I never know when I start off what's going to come out. But yeah, the line that saved me in this for years is the line in the third step where it says we have a new employer. Being all-powerful, he gives me what I need if I stay close to him and do his work well. And I thought, well, how would I know? And what I found out was the way I reckoned it at the time was my job is to work the program, help other people in sobriety, practice these principles all my affairs, and everything else is his responsibility. The money, the relationships, the whole damn thing. And if I can give all of that away and not have to try to control it, then I can go after this thing that I like to talk about, the emotional sobriety. And you know, and I will add this onto it, you know, I spent a number of years reading Bill W.'s letter on emotional sobriety, the next frontier, and listening to speaker tapes on it and all these sort of things, and delving into inventories. But I was going through it, and what was becoming apparent was that it was my dependence on, like even on meetings, you know, I mean, I can be entertaining and this, that, the other, and if I find that I'll finish on this. If I'm trying to be entertaining, then I'd probably go away with a bad feeling. Yeah? If I try too hard to be convincing, I'd probably go away with a bad feeling, you know. So I learned to sort of say, like, God, don't let this be about me in the morning, you know. Just don't let it be about me today, and it'll probably go all right. And I came across this rabbi who was talking about, like, the only way that we get to be really comfortable in ourselves and be able to get the self-validation, escape this, is through God consciousness. And I thought, that sounds like that's going to be difficult. And then he said something which really sort of, you know, really has, you know, was transformative for me, because he said, God consciousness is when I accept myself as I am, you as you are, and the world as it is today. And I remember thinking, I can do that. You know, I can just do that for now. If I want to be at peace, all I got to do is just, you know, accept the way it is, live in reality. Anyway, thanks for letting me share.